One. All right, welcome to edition 120 of the BBK podcast. This is your host, Brian Bullock, and with me today for the first time on the podcast, we have the Spoon Man himself, JT Spoon. How you doing today, Mr. Spoon?
I had nothing better to do during the middle of the day during the NBA season than Bebo knows. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's where we're at.
It's indifferent. I don't know. I think we could both be doing something better with our times, but here we are.
I don't think there's any doubt about that. But we got to give the couple. This is like RTP throwback, I guess. So the 10 or 15 regs from the RTP days will
Yeah. So, all right. So we have, the NBA All-Star game coming up. But before we start talking about anything NBA related, since you've never been on the podcast before, I know you've made your way around different podcasts, but, for first time guests of this pod, I usually have them give a little introduction to themselves from a gambling perspective, your gambling roots, your memorable gambling moments, sports you bet, and anything else you'd like to bring up as far as a gambling introduction. So feel free to take it away.
I guess I've been doing this like nearly 20 years now. I just started with all the stuff you can do with no money, like card counting and Washington State for $100 maxes and 25-cent BP. What's some other low roller shit? Online bonus hustling back in the days of bet on sports and whatever, and that sort of stuff. I guess I got my big break with the introduction into sports betting. I was a lowly bet runner in 2006, and shut up, dog. I was a lowly bet runner in 2006, and I ended up like tripling my bankroll in 1 year. This is back in the days. I mean, all we did was, chase numbers. There's no handicapping. And, when there's 40 sports books or something like that in Clark County alone. And it was really good. I tripled my bankroll in 5 months or something like that. And then I came to the conclusion that, well, I'm just going to bet sports now because, clearly this is a good idea. And then I proceeded to basically lose all my money. And so that sent me back into the casino realm for another 4 years. And that all kind of culminated with a misadventure in Arizona. Anybody who wants to hear me talk about that in detail can listen to my Bob and Dick Gambling with an Edge podcast from 5 years ago that I talked about that in great detail.
Okay.
And after that, I was I didn't want to go to, long story short, I got falsely imprisoned, robbed by the police in the casino. And it really turned me off as far as lots of, I want to go to more Indian casinos and count cards or play machines or anything like that. So it kind of, obviously I love sports. I hadn't bet on it for years. And it kind of, I had a bunch of free time on my hands, a little bit of extra cash, a few accounts that had been sitting dormant for 4 years with money in them. And I was like, I guess I'll revisit the whole sports betting thing now. And that was kind of the impetus to get back into this. And I guess that's where it's been ever since. I've never had a job. So I don't, it's weird. I like to say I don't think I've ever claimed any sort of expertise. I guess I just let the record speak for itself. I don't think I've ever tweeted I am a pro or an expert or anything like that. But I have never collected a paycheck. Since I worked at it. Not since I worked in Subway in 2000.
So no one could ever use you as a reference then for a job.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, no, not at all. In fact, I kind of had to make this work because I was I don't have a resume or a job history or anything. I couldn't get hired. I couldn't get hired at Subway at this point. They'd be like, "What did you do for the last 20 years?" I just
yeah, I've never actually thought of that from somebody who does it for a living because when you have this big gap on your resume. You know, you just tell somebody you were gambling for 20 years, and now you're going to try to shift into like some corporate job. Like, I don't know how that would work.
And you know, it's really stressful. You become a prisoner of your own career. Like, it's really stressful when you're doing like the card counting or casino thing. I mean, okay, somebody's really impressed. Wow, you made roughly, you know, you can make like $100,000 a year. And it's like, wow, that's good money. I'm like, yeah, but there's no career prospects, because what do you do when you don't have any more games after 10 years because you're blacklisted everywhere? It's like, okay, I'm 35 years old. I have no resume, no job history. And, you know, I made enough to get by, but not enough to be rich. And then you really start to feel pressure. I mean, I know I did around that, like 2010. After I punted all my money betting my own sports shit the first time, I was like, well, I'm 6 years into this. I have some money, but not a lot, and I can no longer get a job that I could have got like out of college. So what am I doing with my life right now? And you know, you really have to. I don't even know if I made the right decisions, but it ultimately worked out.
Okay. And did in a previous podcast, did you touch base on that like falsely imprisoned thing? Because that kind of caught me off guard, and I wanted to at least like bring it up. If you know, I don't know like how much you could even get into that, but like that kind of caught me by surprise.
Yeah, I got it was Mademoiselle Casino in Arizona. We were doing it was video blackjack.
Okay.
I got it was a tribal casino, so they had their goons and their friends in the county sheriff and the state police we didn't do anything. Like, we were just beating them playing their game. And this place was so unsophisticated that they decided we must be cheating, or they didn't know what we were doing, but they were mad about it. So yeah, there was a whole lawsuit thing. And some dude, I remember it's on my Twitter. I don't remember what, 6 months ago, some guy kind of rehashed it. He was like, oh, the Ronnie Pister team took this casino for all this money. And it was like he read the LexisNexis or whatever about the case, and he just saw some names and a little bit of the stuff involved. Like, his details about the play were good. They were right. But he kind of like script wrote this whole story about like the Pister team, and I'm like, none of this was even close to happen. And the weird part was, he could have found out what happened, because A, he had Ronnie's name, B, I'm all over fucking Twitter, and you could have got my story in like 10 seconds. But he just chose to create some weird narrative. It was, you know, one of those things that I of course thought was hilarious, because it was about me. But yeah, it may have gone past most people. And this was 10 years. The lawsuit was 10 years ago. So
Okay.
it's not in the consciousness of gambling itself. But it was an interesting story, and that podcast with Bob and Dick is out there if somebody wants to hear me.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so let's go into the MBA portion of this. So, you know, I think most people know of you as an MBA bettor, and you've gone over some of your approaches to MBA, but I wanted to just get an idea of like your transition from an intro bettor into more of a, you know, high stakes, high limits sort of betting. So was it more of like a slow and steady? Because I know you were mentioning like, you know, in your intro about like, you know, kind of just, you know, scoping out lines at 40 something books and just kind of like taking the best lines. But like, besides that, I mean, would you describe that more as like slow and steady, like building up to the high stakes, or was it maybe like, was there maybe one or two epiphanies that like, wait, you know, maybe I got to go about it this way, and then it, you know, immediately transitioned into like becoming like, higher stakes bettor?
Yeah, the thing that I could win at was definitely, like I said, back obviously in like the mid 2000s, when Pinnacle was the answer key, and you had terrible sports book, you know, that was terrible. That stuff was, or you could go to Prim and do a correlated parlay of Ohio State minus 40 and like over 41.5 in some college football game or something. Like, anybody can beat that.
Yeah.
But then when I got back into it after the forced casino retirement, it was mostly an epiphany. I wasn't betting big. I wouldn't consider myself any sort of expert. And I mean, I'm still not going to say what the literal epiphany was,
Sure.
but I was watching this game, and I've been betting. I was doing okay. Like my account balance was going up. I only had a couple books. I was living in Arizona. Like there wasn't that much access to gambling, and I bet this game, and I got my ass kicked. It was something that like should win and usually won, and I got my ass kicked. And I told a friend of mine, I was like, yeah, I made this bet, and like it lost by 35 points. That kind of sucked. And he just laughed at me. He's like, oh yeah, you can't bet that because, and he like something that seemed totally unrelated. And I'm like, huh, that's interesting. And I sat around studying like years worth of NBA statistics for the next like 30 straight hours because I was so intrigued by what I was seeing.
Okay.
And yeah, that really got me. I was just like, oh, I guess luckily I lived in Arizona. So, you know, it's like 3 hours to Las Vegas or to Nevada. I was actually hanging out in Laughlin, like hitting the William Hill kiosks and stuff. I still didn't really know what I was sitting on or what I was doing, but I was betting, you know, like, I mean, for me back then, like $500 was a reasonable unit. I bumped it up to, you know, well, I guess I can bet like 2,000 on this stuff because it seemed good, but I still wasn't sure what I was doing.
Yeah.
By the time I really, then, you know, I spent like all that summer really, you know, like getting my hands on every piece of data and any insight I could. And then like by the time that this was in maybe March, by the time December rolled around, I was betting like 20,000 a game. So it was definitely kind of like ramped up from some jackass sitting in his living room in sweats to, you know, one of the bigger players around in like a very short time. Now I'm sitting here in my living room in sweats again. So it's
well, I mean, going from 3 figures to 5 figures in such a short period, like I couldn't imagine that, you know, that many people could pull that off. But like whatever epiphany you had obviously seemed to pay off if you were able to go that comfortably up like in units without like really blinking.
Well, I mean, I had the money. It was just more like I didn't have the edge.
Got it.
So I'm only willing, at the time, I was only willing to dick around with $500 units. And, you know, obviously, same thing. If I found a casino play, like, oh, we're paying 3 to 1 on blackjack or something, I would have bet 20,000 a hand on that too. You know, it's just like when you find a 5% edge or whatever, like, okay, I'll bet on this.
True. Okay.
But
so
that's actually changed a lot. Like the epiphany is basically gone now.
okay.
The market is nothing like it was 8 years ago. So I have managed, now I pretty much am just, you can throw me in the bucket of every other dipshit with like some data and some opinions. And, you know, like I just kind of bet on the NBA now totally differently than I used to.
Yeah, I would think so. I can't imagine like with me doing this podcast over the years, I feel like whenever somebody has an edge, they're lucky to have it for, you know, sometimes even just for months. You know, if they're lucky. If you're able to have, I feel like from my discussions with people, if you had a big edge for like months, that would be like a huge thing. So, you know, I figured that, you know, things would have changed, but like in terms, yeah. So that was the next question here. As far as the betting landscape, what's changed the most since you started? Now I know that in the, you know, one of the podcasts I listened to you with Shep, that you know, I know one of the things that, you know, was kind of like a big thing for a while until, you know, books finally adjusted was like, you know, the over-unders with like first and second half. You know, that was obviously a big thing, but I think that's adjusted. But, you know, besides something like that, has there been a lot of, you know, changes that like, I mean, and obviously you don't have to maybe get into the specifics because it might give away some of your edge, but, you know, if there's anything like in general that maybe you could describe about like what's changed the most.
Well, yeah, like you said, and the market is definitely sharper. There's so many. There are people that bet, you know, the $250 or $500 limits. I don't think that it's it's not that the important people didn't know anything back then. It was just greater care was taken to preserve things. Really, what killed a lot of it was just, I mean, carelessness, stupidity, outright stupidity, kind of like, oh, we're just going to go ahead and, I knew people that were betting into Chris and Pinnacle, and I'm like, what are you doing? Well, we want to get paid, or we want to make money too. I'm like, that's great. Why don't you just literally bet at any other book? When you are betting into the the thing was like, Chris doesn't care if you're beating the guys that copy them for $1 million, but they weren't losing any money. Like, nobody's betting into them, or they're betting the wrong way or something like that. Like, great care was taken to shape the market. And if the guys who make the numbers aren't losing any money, they're never going to think to fix anything because there's no problem. Once you give them a problem, they might actually try to solve the problem, which they did. And now those edges are gone.
Sure.
And the game itself has changed, but I'll talk about that later, mainly like how the NBA is just a 3-point shooting competition now. And it just is not anywhere near as good to bet on as it once was.
Sure. Okay. So within the within the bubble, and outside the bubble, since NBA started back up again, and I think it was July or August, and now having all this stuff with the virus and all that, adjusting to betting within the pandemic. Have you found it any easier or harder to find edges in these games, whether it be in the bubble itself or outside the bubble? And like my thought before you answer that was that, I know that people always talk about variance being a friend of people's, variance always helps things out, but I don't know if that's how you would think, and if yes, whether it's easier or harder, why is it easier or harder?
Well, I would say variance is absolutely the friend of the winning better, because if there's no variance, it's very easy to just make or repeat a line. If nothing changes, then you can just keep setting the numbers the same, and it's hard to really make mistakes. Really, a lot of the edge these days would be quantifying what situations are worth, but strangely, like, the bubble is great. The thing was, it was great for like the first month, because the bookies or even the market itself seemed to not have any idea how to value the neutral site aspect. Just some of the aspects at play. Like I said, but I didn't make a single bet in like the NBA finals, and maybe like a couple of bets by the conference, by the later rounds of the playoffs. I wasn't really betting anything. I was barely watching. It wasn't very compelling basketball. Like, the NBA needs fans. Like, it was really boring to me. But the preliminary games in the bubble were just outstanding. Plus, it was like an information free for all, because you had all these teams that had already clinched. It was like, oh, we're just not playing anybody today. Just all you had to do, you just bet all the dogs, bet all the overs. It was really the bubble was really good this year. Playing back in the arenas, travel spots, all that sort of stuff. It's more of just a typical NBA season. I don't think there's any great secret or anything special about this season, other than you kind of see home teams getting blown out more often, because I think the refs keep them in games, and with nobody there, there's not this artificial pressure to not let the home team get run.
Sure.
And you see that on some of the lead charts and stuff. Like, you just used to see us when home teams would get down double digits, they would invariably make these runs back. And this year that hasn't been the case at all. I do think that is shady vibes.
Yeah, and I think when I've had Seth on for NFL, and I don't remember if there were other people talking about other sports, but I think in general, it seems like home court isn't what it used to be anyways, even when there was fans. I feel like teams travel a lot better. They're more it's not like they're traveling on some commercial line, or and I feel like some of those home field edges aren't as big as they used to be, at least from what people have told me in previous podcasts. So I'm maybe that's the same with NBA.
Yeah, NBA league-wide home court, you could just see it year over year over year. It continues to diminish. Yeah, my personal anecdote. I actually flew on a commercial flight with the Sacramento Kings, and
Okay.
in like the mid '90s, they played an exhibition against the Lakers in Honolulu, and I was flying home with my parents, and the Kings team was flying. It was a flight into like San Francisco and then connecting back to Portland, and the Kings were on the flight. And like imagine that in the year 2021, like an NBA team sitting by the gate, like waiting to get on the plane, and then flying into like not even their city. You're just kind of like, wow. Then that was 25 years ago.
Was that I'm trying to remember, like, was that like Mitch Richmond Kings era? Was that like when he was on the Kings, or I'm trying to remember who's.
I think so. I think it was somewhere around 97.
Okay.
It was,
I don't
they
remember.
Yeah, before like the C-West, before the 3 years they were good in their entire history. It was definitely it was definitely a shit Kings team. I was like the only person in the airport impressed by the fact the Sacramento Kings were there. Most people are like, yeah, who cares? I was like, wow.
Just a bunch of tall guys.
Like, no, those are the Sacramento Kings. I go, yeah, that team wins 15 games. Like, nobody cares. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I would be impressed with that.
Okay.
Okay.
But yeah, I do think that's why I think home court is diminished. Also, I mean, people like to complain about the refs, and they do largely suck, but there is more accountability. I mean, I think the refs were able to get away with a little more of the playing to the home crowd in the past, and now we're like, you make an egregious mistake, and NBA last 2-minute reports, do they explain it themselves or gets tweeted out by reporters or whatever. I think there is and after the Tim Donaghy shit, like there is more of an emphasis to try to get officials to call the game straight, and not kind of bake in the whole giving the home team a little push aspect. So, yeah, I mean, this year home court's very, very small with no fans either. It's just kind of, I guess you're getting, the home court is just gonna be like travel or whatever, but that doesn't seem to be a huge deal.
Sure. And then one last thing before like the next series of topics about the NBA itself. When things go back to normal, when I say normal, I mean when people are able to attend the crowds, you're having like your standard 80 to 100% capacity. Is there anything you'll be able to use from these? I don't know if the phrase lost seasons is the right phrase, but I feel like the data from these seasons might not be as relevant as like other seasons, because it's just going to be, I feel like, an outlier unless we have another pandemic in the next 5 or 10 years. But do you feel the same way, or are there things that you think you'll be able to like use from this that you'll carry over to future years of betting?
I think you can throw the bubble data in garbage. Most of the games were not played with the team's best lineups because 90% of the teams there didn't care.
Yeah.
And the playoffs were a unique situation. I mean, that's fine. This year's fine. Like I think the data from this year is just as good as any other.
Okay.
There's nothing uncharacteristic about this case.
Okay, so the next topic here, the NBA itself. One of the things that came up, I think it was in the NBA Twitter sphere last week about the topic of nerds ruining the game. I think it was somebody, was it like Nate Duncan or something? There was like I don't remember the player, but the player made a nice play. It was like a highlight play, but then he was like shitting all over the players, like performance, the overall performance of that player. And unfortunately I don't remember the exact player, but do you have a strong opinion one way or the other about like how these data people are like, whether they're ruining the game or not?
Yeah, they are. I guess the problem is that NBA, especially offensively, is sort of like a solved game. And like anytime somebody does a negative EV play, it's very easy to identify, and then I guess you just shame them. And but the problem is they're not wrong either. And so I don't blame the nerds for being like, yeah, this was a stupid thing to do. But at the same time, if every player did the best EV decision on every possession, it would be very boring, which it mostly is anyway. But is this any worse than having Shaq or Jeff Van Gundy or any of these other, dinosaurs going on to NBA's own platforms and being like, oh, these guys suck, these guys whine, this in my era, those guys are horrible too. It's like the guys who cover the NBA hate it, and to cover the NBA hate it. I'm like, does anybody like this sport?
Yeah, and like you said, I think the shot charts for teams is like basically the same. Like everyone's like, top 50 or 100 shots that they take are all like on the perimeter or like right next to the basket. And I'm not saying, I mean, like you said, I think that they've, most of these teams have kind of solved that, but like, is there really anything that they can do to like, change that? Like get rid of the corner three, or like, I mean, even if you made I feel like even if you made like 3-pointers, like, 30 feet away, these guys practice like 35, 40 foot 3-pointers now. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah, the problem is not the Curry, Lillard, Luka brigade shooting the threes. The problem is every center in the league is now expected to be like a marksman, and every wing is a marksman, and like just the mid range and post ups, it's just obsolete. These are just garbage possessions. What can they do to fix it? It has to be structural. What can they do to fix it? They can widen the court. They make the court, I don't know, 3 feet wider, and just move those corner threes back 18 inches and, bump out the other ones a little bit, then that pretty much fixes the problem. But you're going to lose a row of courtside seating, and that's going to cost the league tens of millions of dollars. So it's never going to happen. I mean, they would rather be down to where like 8 people are watching the games than they would, and everybody's bitching about it, than they would lose that kind of money. And I can't say they're wrong. Like, it's their money. But the product has become shittier as time progresses, and everybody solved like what to do on offense and where to shoot from. And there's just like, interesting players no longer can be on the court, and all these like Trae Youngs of the world. I don't know if typical fans realize that he's like not good at shooting those shots, but he makes a couple, and everyone's like, oh yeah, no, you gotta. He's like Curry. Like, no, he's not. So you have like mediocre players like that get this green light for 35 footers, and that's not fun to watch. A 4-point line is definitely not the answer, because again, yeah, Curry can shoot a 4-pointer, but then you're going to have even he or even Lillard, even the guys that are good at it, are still shooting like 25% from 4, and it's like that's a better EV shot than most 2s. So it's but do you want to watch guys shooting 25% every trip down the floor? You're going to have like 3-minute stretches where nobody makes a basket. Everyone's just chucking from 4. And that would be terrible too. And so I don't like getting rid of the corner 3. I don't like 4-pointers. You could change the structure. You could go like an answer is to make 3s worth 4 and 2s worth 3. That would solve the math. But the main problem there is then every shooting foul is like 3 free throws. Yeah. So the game would take like an extra 20 minutes, and it's just all free throws, which are the worst part of the game right now anyway. So then you'd have to change like the whole free throw shooting aspect. And that just kind of becomes a nightmare. So yeah, widen the court, but widening the court costs a ton of money. So we're stuck with what we've got for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Do you find yourself watching less games because of it?
I guess I watch the games because it's my job, but I don't. If somebody tells me they don't like the NBA, I'm not really a defender. I would have been, a long time ago. I loved the NBA since I was a kid. What it is now, I sound like one of those old guys, and I'm not like, the Bill Laimbeer tough physical defense, or the milkman. Truck drivers were the pinnacle of that. But like, no, the players are great, and the athleticism and the sport, it's wonderful. But just the structure of the game, it's like all you need to do is shoot 3-point. It's just a 3-point shooting contest, and it should be based on the scoring rules of the game. There's very little reason to do something else. Like if you're not just chucking threes all the time, you're basically doing it wrong. But it doesn't make for a real compelling product.
Yeah, and I feel like I had a friend say like they should just get rid of the 3-point line, but then it would just be like you'd go back to where it was before, where you just have like the big men shooting from 5 feet away or 3 feet away, like I don't know.
It would still make the mid range would still be obsolete. I mean, I guess you could have the guys who are really good at threes could be really good from 18 feet instead. But like, why is that any more fun to watch? I don't need to watch Klay Thompson like catch and shooting from 16. Also, the spacing would be horrible because then you'd still need guys that could shoot from deep. Otherwise, you're gonna have 10 guys standing 10 feet from the basket. That's that's
that would So I don't know. I think they've now that everyone's figured it out, it's just I don't know. I figured since you watch 10 billion more times NBA games than I do, I figured that you'd have, and the widening the court, like that makes sense, but like you also said, they're not going to throw away millions a year for to widen the court, so it seems like a non-starter.
Basically.
So as far as if you were the commissioner, like what one thing would you change about the league? I know you mentioned the widening of the courts, but I don't know if you want to just even discard that and think of like maybe something else that you would change to make the league, I don't know, more compelling, maybe more watchable for somebody who's like kind of tired about this 3-point revolution that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say fixing at 3. I don't know. Element. That's a no-brainer. Besides watching guys shooting free throws, I mean, shooting free throws is the most boring part of the game. And you mix that with the hideous end game of teams fouling down, especially, thank God Ryan Saunders has been fired, but there's nothing worse than the Timberwolves fouling down 9 with like 18 seconds left. You're increasing your winning percentage from 0 to 0. I don't even know what the point was.
Now, did you ever watch that?
The Elam ending's great. Like the Elam ending is unassailably awesome, and I have no idea. Well, I know why, because it takes when you have a good idea that should be implemented in 6 months, it takes professional sports 30 years to finally do it. But
sure.
Someday we might get there. It's just better. I mean, the end games are there's no downside. It's just better.
Yeah, that summer league that they do with the that 3-on-3 league. Have you ever watched that?
The TBT?
Yeah.
I mean, I in the middle of the summer when you're like, what the hell is this? But it's basketball. It's basketball. I guess I'll watch it. I don't really know like why or who or what it is, but it's like, okay, I guess I'll see this. But yeah, I know that.
Yeah, because like they I think they only shoot like 1 free throw and it's worth 2 points. I don't know if that would be more appealing. I feel like it might be.
It makes sense. Yeah. They shoot 1 and it's worth 2, which cuts down on the dead time of guys shooting free throws.
Sure.
So, sure. I like that.
Yeah, okay. All right. So let's go into the Vegas life, because I feel like anytime I have somebody who comes on the podcast from Vegas, I like to pick their brain, just partly because I love Vegas. I haven't been there in about 7 years, but I just like to get different insights from the people that live there. So how long have you actually lived in Vegas or near Vegas?
2013.
Okay.
So 8 years now.
So 8 years. Okay. So in your time there, have you had like a couple of places that you've lived, and if you have, like, what are the areas in your opinion that were like your favorite areas to live, your least favorite areas to live? Like my experience with Vegas is very limited with just the Strip, and I think I went into Old Vegas while a couple times, but I never actually stayed there. I just went in there like just to see the casinos, but never actually stayed there. But as far as like areas that you've lived, what are your say if some degenerate right now is like looking to go there, like your thoughts on like where where you would recommend living, not recommend living?
I've lived in three. I've lived three places here. One, I lived on the Strip,
Okay.
MGM Grand, the Signature at MGM. I lived there for 4 years, 5 years, something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, I lived like literal Strip life. Then I had a house. If you tell somebody where it is, they're like, Spoon, why were you living in the ghetto? Like, you don't seem like it was over on like Eastern and Desert Inn. It was like when you went onto the main streets, it was all, the pawn shops and bail bondsmen and Dee Dee's Discount and stuff. Like, it's not where you would expect this enclave of really nice houses, but there was a few back there. And I lived there for a couple of years. Now I live in Southern Islands. The problem with this part of town is that it's still really, we're waiting for the city to catch up with it, sort of like Aliante was probably a decade ago. I live like 2 miles from, Starbucks, that sort of stuff. There's a grocery store close, but it's still going to take like 10 years to have the level of convenience that you might associate a big city with. Compared to like living on the Strip, where sort of like I could just pick up my phone in my room and have food delivered into the room services here, or I could go downstairs. There's a Starbucks in the lobby.
Okay.
It's a little different than having to like, it takes me like 30 minutes to get to Starbucks and back from here. So that kind of thing is just a little bit different.
So yeah, John Nissan, who actually supplied a lot of questions. By the way, have you actually hung out with John?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, he was he was wondering. So was the MGM life, was that as fun as it sounded?
Yeah. A few complaints. I really liked it. The downside, so I didn't own, I rented, and
Okay.
you basically it's like living in a hotel room, which is kind of like, it has all the pros and cons. You think the amenities are unrivaled, like you literally live in the biggest casino in town, so that's pretty cool. And the convenience. The downsides, I have this whatever horrible internet connection they had there. It was really slow. Watching videos was a nightmare. I bet on shit for a living, and like having slow internet was a major headache at times. Yeah, that wasn't good. The parking situation, like it was mandatory valet, and there'd be times it doesn't matter necessarily when you are going to go out for a while, but it was sort of like there'd be times, I need to go. The whole like, I'm going to run to the grocery store and pick up a couple of things that you have in like a home life you don't have in the high-rise life, because it's like I got to go stand and wait for my car to be delivered from valet, tip the guy, drive my car down the street, take it up 26 elevated floors, with my sacks full of groceries. It was sort of like you'd have to schedule your whole, shopping and that sort of stuff. It was kind of a headache. So there was some aspects that were convenient, some that weren't. Ultimately, the main reason I wanted to move out was I really, really, really wanted a dog.
Okay.
And I couldn't have one there. And a yard. I mean, I grew up like where my parents live. They have like a very large house. There's like HOAs and stuff in rural Oregon aren't like a thing. So I was so used to that kind of environment that just living in this 900 square foot condo was it was cool, but eventually it wears itself out. Like, oh, hey, I just want a yard, and I want a dog, and I want fast internet, and I want a TV that has more than like 12 channels, that I don't need to know how many times I need to see like the MGM infomercial about how many about all the stuff there, so the M Life channel was, I had already seen all the ads 5,000 times a piece. So yeah, eventually it was like, okay, now I got Cox Giga Blast and I have like 700 channels. I pay like $500 a month for TV because I have plus every single streaming service. The cord cutters, I was like a cord adder. I just added all of the Netflix and I have all of them. I can probably watch every show like on 5 different platforms, and I don't even know why. It's very suboptimal, but I don't have the motivation to like change it.
I have problems deciding on things, and we cut the cord, so I mean, I guess you left yourself with a lot of options, but I can't handle having that many choices in front of me.
This is not by design. I'm not going to say that I mastered the system. I'm probably failing at it. It just is what it is.
So, I mentioned the pandemic in relation to the NBA, but in terms of like your day-to-day life in Vegas, obviously it cut into, your NBA betting when NBA wasn't going on for a few months. But besides that, what did the lack of being able to do things on a day-to-day basis, your average things, how did that affect your day-to-day?
Well, I used to travel a lot, and I haven't left town in like a year. So
Okay.
that's been a big difference. I mean, part of it, like international travel is kind of out based on, all the restrictions and, just laws and things like that. It's just kind of a no-go. I'm not going to do like a 2-week quarantine to travel somewhere.
Sure.
And then even looking at things domestically, like, oh, maybe we can go to Tahoe. But then you start looking like, oh, well, the restaurants are closed and the spas closed and the excursions to anything fun is, you got to wear a mask to do this. And you got to do, I'm not like I'm an anti-masker, but, and you have to keep all your distance. It's sort of like even going to a nice resort. I'm not going to pay $300 plus a night to go somewhere and just do the same thing I'm doing at home. So what, I can sit in my room or,
yeah.
So yeah, even easy trips, like Phoenix or San Diego or Tahoe or something like, I haven't even been compelled to do that, but definitely, I obviously things are looking better, but even if we're still in a semi-state of lockdown by the time summer rolls around, I'll do something to get out of here. I hopefully can actually like travel somewhere fun, but regardless, I'll do something. But day-to-day life wasn't too bad. Obviously I work from home, and when the NBA wasn't around, I wasn't working at all. But yeah, it wasn't a big deal. We watched like Breaking Bad and caught up on some of the old shows on the My 500 channels and all the streaming, and yeah, it wasn't a big deal. I'm not somebody who spends 6 nights a week out anyway. And I work from home and my wife works from home, and it just kind of like it wasn't like too bad.
Okay. Now, like when you did your traveling, did you go to like, did you see a lot of NBA games like on the road? Like you go to Phoenix to catch some Suns games?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely, when possible. Well, I would say, a lot of it would be like, I kind of want to travel somewhere and it'd be like, oh, the Suns are playing at home this time. So if I'm going to go to Phoenix for some reason, I might as well go when there's a Suns game. And
sure.
Yeah, I've been to like, I think about half of the NBA arenas. And,
okay.
And definitely, I've seen a shit ton of playoff games and stuff. For as far as domestic travel, that was since the casino. I mean, in the old days, most of my travel was domestic travel, is like combination of casino based with recreation. But these days, it was more like I go to basketball games. Try to see at least some different places. I mean, I don't think I would have ever traveled to like Cleveland or Milwaukee on their own merits, but I've been there to watch basketball games.
Sure. Yeah, I'm within driving range of Milwaukee, and I went to a Bucks game like, I don't know, I think it was like 3 years ago, and it was fun. I forget how close Milwaukee is to Chicago, so I wouldn't mind.
I did the Milwaukee Chicago two-step. I went to the Bucks and the Bulls were in the playoffs at the same time. The Bucks played. I went to a game there. They played Toronto, and then the next day I went to a Celtics Bulls game in the Windy City with Twitter luminary David Bote is dead. Before he was killed, we went to watch his beloved Bulls get curb stomped by the Celtics. So that
was that the series where it went 7 games and that was like the only bad game?
No, it was no. That was before. This was a series. The Bulls were the 8th seed. They won the first 2 in Boston.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Amazingly, the crippling Rajon Rondo injury in the year 2017. Like who would have thought? And then the wheels quickly came off the train for the Bulls, and they just get pumped like the next 4 games in a row.
Yeah, because my claim to fame, I've only been to one NBA playoff game, and it was during that Celtics Bulls series. That was amazing, but I went to the one shitty game.
Like the game before it went to like triple overtime, and the game after it's like nobody led by more than 3 points for the entire fourth quarter, and you go to like the 35 point.
Yeah, I think there was like 7 or 8 total overtimes in that series. But yeah, it was okay. So as far as like the your time when in Vegas, like how often are you bumping into people from Twitter there, or maybe you're setting up visits there when during the normal times when you're able to hang out at the casino?
Yeah, but I don't know about organically bumping into, but kind of, I guess the good thing about living here, especially in the sports gambling sphere, is that most people do make a trip here. So they're people that you have like they're like a Twitter acquaintance, but like, oh, they're coming to Las Vegas, and they'll be like, hey, I want to catch up sometime in person after we've been following each other for like 3 years. And for the most part, like, sure, I'm down as long as I have the chance. So yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of mostly brief interactions, but I've met definitely like a dozen or two people off of the gambling Twitter universe here in town.
Is there any good like stories that you're comfortable sharing about any of them? Or I know some people might not want their these private stories shared in a
for that reason, I probably would just like err on the side of caution here. I don't necessarily, I don't know how serious, obviously I'm like appearing on camera and don't really care about like privacy or whatever being doxxed. But I don't know what other people's things are like. So for that reason, I'm mostly just playing silence.
Well, I had Johnny on the podcast. Like, what were your interactions with John? I mean, I know he lives there, but like,
Well, that was I had MGM gave me like 4 tickets to the suite to watch a Golden Knights game.
Okay.
And maybe like 2 hours beforehand, the 2 of the people that were going to come like dropped out. I'm like, well, I got 2 tickets to the suite, free food, free drink. It's a suite, like who doesn't want to come? And I had exhausted any sort of lead amongst like friends I knew. So I was like, I guess I'll just tweet like, anybody want 2 free tickets? Have at it. First come, first serve. And yeah, he was the first came, first served. So that's how we met. Yeah, he just like showed up at I don't remember, New York or Monte Carlo, whatever, and came to the game. But I got lucky. I mean, you never know what kind of complete weirdo you might encounter. It's just an open invitation. Like it could be somebody. I mean, it's not like gambling Twitter is lacking in antisocial weirdos. But managed to find somebody that was like 90% normal. So yeah,
there's a lot of people on the spectrum.
Oh yeah, I'm certainly not excluding myself. I don't hold myself to. I say this with like appreciation, not with.
Sure.
I mean, there are a couple that might be a little far fields, but for the most part, it's there could be some misses amongst the group.
Oh, sure. Yeah, but my times where people have come into town, I've had a good run with meeting people from Twitter. So like like you said, like I wasn't sure about how it would go with some of them, but most of them are pretty good. So
I can't say I've ever I would honestly, I've never had somebody or an interaction where I was like, man, I want to kill myself. I think most people are also, I mean, you already know like you have this common interest to begin with. So anybody I'm going to talk about with sports or betting or anything like that, it can only be so awkward or strange. For the most part, it's totally fine.
Sure.
I've never had any real negative interaction.
Okay, good. One of the listener questions here, and I figured I'd tie it into the Vegas life part, was it was Sizzling Sports asking about the Fuhrman Tout Fest story. Now I don't know if you've shared this on another podcast, and maybe he just wanted me to rehash it, but do you care to share that story?
Oh, absolutely, my favorite. So, 2015, somewhere in that era. The Westgate for their super contest weekend had a harebrained idea to have this like tout symposium, and it was I can't remember every aspect, but it was they had three panels of three people. There was like a college football panel, AFC, and an NFC, and some of the names involved were Smoke and Koken, Kelly in Vegas, Fezzik, Warren Sharp, and the wote. My wote, I know Sizzle's wote is Jason McIntyre. My personal wote, Toot Fuhrman, was there, and it's hard to capture the ambiance of this room. So I'm like, who the fuck wants to come to a tout symposium? And I get in there, and it's the usual like fat guys wearing the Flaming Dice shirt, and like my favorite was I'm there to troll. I have like I'm periscoping this thing. I'm live tweeting it. In fact, I had like maybe 20 Twitter followers, and it was like only people that knew me from RTP or something. Like I was nobody, and somehow, I mean, I guess the right people retweeted it, because like all of a sudden I have 20 Twitter followers, and like 150 people are streaming this Periscope with the Tout Symposium. And I'm getting like all of these comments. People are asking me like, oh, tell us more about, because I guess I was the only one with the foresight to live tweet the event. And so I was there to do God's work on that particular day. I mean, and of course the symposium was as absurd as you would think. So it gets to the final panel. I think he was on the final one, and it's Toot. And just a personal side, I mean, it's easy to dunk on and loathe people like RJ and Vegas Dave, and just the obvious scum of the earth. I really fucking hate Todd Fuhrman. Like, this guy, he knows nothing. I read his when I was like retweeting his garbage, whatever it was yesterday, the day before. I'm just looking at, because of course he has me blocked, so I have to go onto I don't even have burners, believe it or not. I had to go onto like a PC or something. I'm looking.
Okay.
Like, his angle is just he's like the oracle of Twitter, or like a prophet or something. Like, he never says anything. It's just like he has all these like Confucius like sayings. Oh, to the management of the bankroll it's like fucking gambling fortune cookie. It's just bullshit, and it pisses me off to read his stuff. Like, he says nothing, and he's on TV for 2.5 hours a week, and he writes and he tweets, and I've never actually heard him say anything. He knows nothing. He was a guy who worked in a casino. It was just like he was plucked at random. He was smart enough, though, because I mean, you have to remember, like, the whole reason I ever knew about pregame, remember when ESPN had like RJ Bell on TV, on their platforms, relentlessly promoting pregame? Yeah, I mean, what a time. Thankfully, I think as we've moved forward, I mean, you can say what you want about the Purdums and Kazarians of the world, but they're 100 times better than the days of shilling for RJ. I think we've at least moved to the point where ESPN realizes it was a bad idea to promote tout services. But somehow Toot, I guess, had the foresight to, like, he doesn't sell picks. He just peddles nonsensical rambling. And he was there in the early going, and he's just, I guess, built this brand on the backs of media people who never figured out that he's a fraud and knows nothing. So anyway, he drives me insane. I fucking hate that guy. And
most of the media doesn't, they don't really care what people say. They're just trying to fill 30 minutes, so they don't, or an hour of content. So most of these people aren't like,
it was like they were impressed in the pre-PASPA days. They were impressed. Oh, this guy, he was whatever his official title was at Caesars. I mean, the guy was his responsibility was, deciding which game goes on the big TV with the sound, and like, can a guy get an extra drink ticket? That was, they're acting like he was the CEO or the head linesman at Chris. Like, the guy was nobody. And somehow he convinced somebody that he was really important Las Vegas person. He hasn't made a plug nickel gambling his entire life, and he sits here and dispenses all this gambling, the gambling wisdom. from his house on the hill, and it's just insufferable. But
Yeah,
he was there. Oh, go ahead.
See, I picture him not betting more than like a couple hundred on a game. Like that's how I picture him. Like I'm not, and like for me, I'm not a big bettor. So like a couple hundred for me is probably like a big bet. But like so I'm not trying to judge, but I just don't picture him as like like a high roller type of bettor. Like if he's,
I'm sure he's not. I do want to say I don't consider myself a bet shamer, and I'm sure somebody who's watched this is like, dude, you tweet out tickets, you're a douche. And I'm like, yeah, I probably like peacock and ego dildo with some bet tickets and stuff. But I don't shame people who don't bet big. I don't care if somebody bets $20, like that's fine. Especially if you don't win or something, like you shouldn't be betting big.
Yeah.
I only reserve that scorn for the J Max who are like, he produces all this, he's a gambling expert and then he has a $50 bet ticket. Like that's where I'm like, you deserve to be dunked on, because you can't brand yourself a professional or an expert and be betting like $100. That's just ridiculous.
Sure.
And
so as far as like the perception of touts within Vegas itself, are we looking at like, do you think that like the average professional bettor that's like not on Twitter like you, are they looking at them kind of like we are, like where they're kind of like they're just kind of like shaking their heads and like they're just making a mockery out of sports betting, or are they maybe happy because like they're like promoting like minus EV shit, and like like or is there maybe somewhere in between that
that attitude's probably changed since the legalization. I'd say before it was more of a just one-way street of hatred, because we're trying to get legalized. We want to give sports betting a bad name, and when if an anti-gambling politician can point to somebody like Vegas Dave and be like, look at this, or RJ Bell, and that's really, it is indefensible. Like this happens in our industry. It's kind of the face of the industry, because most like reputable pros don't put their name and face out there, and so when complete frauds and charlatans are the face of your industry, it's kind of indefensible. But since legalization, they probably do. I mean, as much as I loathe to, like, I don't know, he probably does expand the market in some weird way. Like he has 130,000 followers, and if these people are driven to gamble because they think that Tude's guidance is helping them, like maybe that helps. The market is a little deeper than it used to be. Like the limits and things and outs, like it's just better than it was pre-legalization. I have a lot of issues with what's happened since legalization, but that's not one of them. So
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to despise them for their complete lack of ethics and being horrible humans, but from like a business standpoint, I mean, I don't know, they're fine. I don't think they certainly don't cost money. I do think they could cost people money in the pre-legalization days, because if somebody has a $500 gambling budget and they're giving 100 of it to a tout, how does that help anything? And then they lose, and then they realize that they got scammed. Just don't come back.
Sure. Now, have you had many interactions yourself, directly or indirectly, with touts since you've lived there? And if so, how were they?
Well, one reason I don't have a lot of interactions with touts here is because I spend a lot of my time, betting sports books, and that's kind of the last place to run into a tout. It's like, trust me, you don't see most touts betting. That's not what they do. Most of them have the good sense to realize their own picks are dog shit, and they don't bet. Of course, I have had dinner with a legendary tout, Mr. Fezzik himself.
Okay.
And it was as you would expect. He had his full, I think he's manic or autistic, or like something's not quite right with him. His internet persona is not a persona. Like that's him. And, he had like 2 glasses of water, and he's like pouring water between them to illustrate some sort of point. He was using his like food to illustrate a point, and he's just, his mouth is going. I think there is 4 or 5 of us there, and every breath that's being taken was Fezzik talking about breathlessly telling us about, something about the math of 2-point conversions, or I mean, whatever it was. It was interesting. It didn't. I was not disappointed. I was not disappointed.
And you know what? To his credit, like he as far as like people who talk about football go, like he was kind of ahead of most people that on the 2-point conversion like philosophy when like say like when you're down by 14 and you score a touchdown. Like I think he was like one of the ones that's like always said like you got to go for it, and it's like he does have like there are signs of like you could see like maybe why he won a few of those contests back in the day. I mean, obviously, that was, we all know about contests on like how those go. It doesn't really show like how good of a gambler you are, but it does take a tiny bit of skill. But like, otherwise, like it seems I don't know. I everything we've heard about Fezzik from like when Grooven was around and sharing those stories, like that he's like kind of just whatever edge he used to have is like long gone.
Yeah, he's good at math. I mean, he's an actuary. Like he's not. He is good at math. In fact, and he used to win at one point. I think that's. I mean, a lot of my original tweets were dunked on Fezzik, and it wasn't that I hate him or he's like the lowest tout out there. The thing that, and I know Grooven felt the same way, was like the reason we held Fezzik in disrepute was he knows better. I mean, a lot of these touts that don't bet or just kind of have been 30-year pikers, and you're just kind of like, they know they don't win and they've never won, and I think they delude themselves into thinking they might provide some sort of value to bettors, like, oh, I've been gambling, I have 25 years experience, and if somebody I can help nascent bettors or something. Like, I think they delude themselves. Fezzik knows what he's doing. He used to rail against touts. He lost his edge because he was betting, parlay cards, correlated parlays, chasing steam, the things that are easy to do from a math perspective. He can't handicap his way out of a paper bag. And when that became what you had to do to win, he couldn't win. So he took the easy road out. Like, he knows what he's doing. He knows his service is of zero value. And he just keeps taking those pregame checks. And that's why I, think he's scum. Like, he could have gone back to Transamerica and made, I don't know, $100,000 a year or whatever his job was. But take the easy way out. So he's scum.
Sure. Okay. And that Fezzik like dinner, was that just like you just happened to just be there, or like just common?
I knew he was coming. That was part of the reason I went to the dinner. I just not that I was in awe. I was like, oh my God, Fezzik. I was like, oh my God, Fezzik. Like, I gotta be there for this, especially because I had trolled him online, like several times. So I was just curious to like what it was going to be like. It would be like now if somebody had told me that like Tude and Kelly in Vegas were coming to dinner, do I want to come? I'd be, oh, fuck yeah. Like,
yeah, with Clay.
yeah, Clay. I don't know if I could be in the same room as Clay. He's
Clay's the deal breaker there.
I mean, Clay isn't even like I mean, what can you say? It would just degenerate into an argument, and I can't handle it. So.
Sure. Okay. All right. The next segment here, before I have like these handful of listener questions, do you have it in you to like break down the NBA All-Star Game and its festivities like in the form of your Spoon Says videos? Because I know there's been a lot of interest in those. So is there like could you drum up like the the inner tout in you or whatever, or however you like channel like the Spoon videos? Like, can you give us like a
yeah, sure. Let me put on this. This was supposed to be the what's the dude's name? Crackman. And I thought I actually ended up looking like Smoking Cocaine. So I saw the thumbnail of that YouTube video. I'm like, I look just like Smoking Cocaine sitting there. It's supposed to be Crackman. And everything, all the videos, I mean, I owe Showtime's action series. I made it. My wife knows nothing about like sports betting or gambling, so we watched that whole action series. And so after rewatching it, I couldn't believe like how ripe for parody it was. So
that's what it's based off of then?
Yeah, all those video types with Crackman sitting there like, I don't watch the games. I don't even know a player in the league, and not look at me, I'm fucking rich or whatever. And so I'm like, okay, I'll sit by my in-ground heated Matt Lindemann Memorial Pool and brag about how rich I am not watching games or whatever. in retrospect, Spoon Says videos, I mean, obviously the production value is dog shit. They're just single take from my phone. I wish I had a way to like make a display. They're in character, they're parody. And I got so like for real, I actually was getting DMs and messages back channel. They're like, people were betting this shit. I'm like, it's a fucking parody. Like, don't bet on this. This is, I'm not handicapped. I don't win at the NFL. There's no value in these picks. And maybe I underestimated, I don't know, reputation or newer people. They didn't realize that, like, I mean, the bets were real. There's like a Photoshop ticket. I did bet $8,000 on a martingale on the Browns, and people didn't realize I'm willing to commit $8,000 to the gimmick, to the lulls. Like, who the fuck would do that? Like, I did. It wasn't like a good financial decision, although but for that bet won. I was willing to just bet big amounts of money on stupid shit just for a video that 500 people watched. And I think people thought that they were like getting hot picks from a winner, and like, oh God, no. And so that was a little unfortunate. And I guess I really should have put a disclaimer that these are parodies, not to be taken seriously. Please don't follow these picks.
Yeah, I think that's how you probably didn't realize, like, even with parodies, like how thirsty people are for picks. I mean, obviously you might know that to some degree, but like you probably thought it was like so obvious.
I thought it was obvious. The name of the first video is me listening to Straight Out of Vegas with RJ Bell. Like, I was like, when my handicapping involved pretending I didn't know any players' names, or they haven't won Buffalo has never won a Super Bowl, and the Jets won Super Bowl III. I mean, why would you follow that? But the worst part was, since then I actually watched like Daily Wager quite a bit and stuff. And when you listen to the reasons given for picks on there, I guess it doesn't sound so bad. It sounds exactly like what you tend to see on Lock It In or Daily Wager and stuff. So maybe I needed to put the disclaimer, but I don't have the technology. Like, I don't even know how to edit a video. So like, if I had to do over again at the start, I'd be like, this is a parody, don't bet. But I didn't have that, and it would have been really jarring for me to sit there out of character and say that, and then go right into character with a bullshit video. So I don't know, maybe a little caveat emptor. If people couldn't quite figure out that those picks were based on ludicrous logic, maybe they deserved to get taken to the woodshed. So maybe they all bought Matt Moore rookie cards, and I should go check the value, because that thing might have doubled since I bought it for the video.
So would you like to break down like a particular contest or the game itself? Like,
who's in the dunk contest?
There's like three guys. Let me look it up really quick. But I think one of them was it Toppin? I think Toppin was one of them.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
one of the guys I've never heard of. Whoa,
yeah, there's always like one guy I've never heard. At least one guy. It's Anthony Simons, Cassius Stanley, and Toppin.
Okay, well, Simons plays for the Blazers. He's also like my height, so he plays with the Blazers, and he's short. I like him. They're not going to put also, and Spud Webb is one of the judges, so I think he's kind of inflates Anthony Simons' scores. So I think there's a lot of value on Anthony Simons to take down the dunk contest. Should I be putting a
flashing notice?
20 seconds ago, I didn't even know who was in this contest, and I certainly have no idea what the odds are. No, please don't.
Yeah, I hope people can see through that, but I'm never one that's like trying to like, there was a point in time where I had like some podcast that like, would talk about lines, but I feel like that market for podcasts is just like so oversaturated that like I'd rather have like either us making fun of it.
I was ecstatic that you didn't want to talk for like 35 minutes about my like breakdown of the Eastern Conference. I'm like, I mean, Brooklyn's going to win the Eastern Conference. We can do that in 10 seconds. But I like talking about gambling life much more than I enjoy talking about how does Chris Paul shape the Suns or something like that.
Sure. Yeah. And what does that really accomplish? I mean, there's billions of podcasts
there's a never ending amount of content out there for people who care for that.
Yeah. So, all right. So this is, I think you were looking forward to these listener questions.
Oh my God,
Um,
they're great. Yeah,
so,
they're wonderful.
some of them are serious, some of them are like,
Yeah, the more trolls, the better. Yeah, it's a lot to me.
yeah. So one of my favorite, recent guests, Kevin
Fucking
Hogan
troll.
here.
Fucking troll. Yeah.
So his first question was, would you rather bet first half or second half? And then what futures loss haunts you the most and why is it the Raptors? And I had to clarify it was the year that before they won, I think when they were
The one
when
seed.
they lost to the Cavs, like in the second round, I think.
Yeah, they got swept.
Yeah.
I know what he's referencing. So that's it. This is consummate Kevin as well, because it's like a serious question mixed with trolling me about a massive loss. So yeah, props to that. The serious question. So this is going to seem a little counterintuitive. There's a bigger edge on first halves, and that's just because first halves have openers. First half can be put up at any number that's off. If a game total is 220 and the first half's 112, like you can put up 108 and you're never going to be wrong. You can't miss by that much on a second half opener, but the first half opener can. And you will see that I've seen multiple books with first half limits that are lower than second halves because I think they're mostly comfortable with second halves. The edge can't be that big. But from a personal standpoint, I like betting second halves more. I mean, first half is like a full day job. You have to be there for the openers. You have to sit there and stare at the screen to try to get like the best number. It's a much bigger commitment. You have to cobble. I will never bet a first half at Pinnacle or Chris or on screen. But the second half is like, when it goes, it's 10 minutes of just kind of like excitement and then it's done. And the edge is smaller, but I do enjoy it more. And I will, if Pinnacle has the best number on a second half total by like 5 cents and they're taking $6,000, like I will bet that. I'm not so averse to hitting this screen that I wouldn't bet that. So it makes getting down easier too, because it's not like you have to go to 35 different books betting $500 here and there. It's like you can get down a little more effortlessly.
Okay. And with you living in Vegas, are most of your bets done through like the apps like that the casinos offer?
No. I mean, I use them, but there's basically like 3 of them that are even worth anything. The rest of them are, pretty shitty.
Okay.
So it's mostly like PPH accounts people give me, and credit accounts, things like that. Yeah, that's how I tend to do most of my betting.
Okay. And then we don't really need to touch base on that futures loss because I
Oh no, please. Yes. He's referencing it's still out there. I'm actually surprised I don't get trolled about it more because I bet, and of course, in the douchebag way, I posted the ticket. It was $90,000 to win 50 on Toronto to beat Cleveland when they were the 1 seed. And it's not, you lost. It's a hard fought 7-game series. Like, no, they got swept. So having a $90,000 bet that on a series favorite that gets swept is a little bit humiliating. But the thing was, I just think it's because my followers are so sharp that they realize that a losing bet isn't a bad bet. Now, of course, they got swept. But the thing was, it wasn't like, so Toronto was -7 in the first 2 games at home. And I believe they were a pick in game 3. They were pretty substantial dogs in game 4, but any team that's down 3-0 will be. And I'm like, if a team is a 7-point favorite at home and a pick away, and they get 4 of the games at home, -180 is a horrible, like that's just a mandatory bet.
Sure.
And it wasn't like it was fine if somebody like Cleveland in that series. I mean, clearly, but if, and even Bill Simmons was like, we're on Cavs +155. LeBron getting a price against an Eastern Conference team. What a joke. And then, of course, after it's over, he's, gloating. I'm like, well, why? I have if somebody liked the Cavs in that series, I mean, fine. But just bet the +7. And to me, anybody who was a full-time bettor, even if an NBA specialist or anything of the sort, like, you had to have a bet in that series. You can't have a home team laying 7 and a series price at 180 and not have you either bet one side or the other or bet both. The only things you can't lay Toronto -7 and you can't take Cleveland plus 155 for the series. Anything else is fine. Like, I would have had no problem with somebody like the Cavs and was taking 7. I just happened to like the Raptors, and I was very, very wrong. And
yeah, it kind of reminds me of like there's like 2 specific NCAA championship games in football, and I don't know how closely you follow it, but like one of them was the Bama versus Notre Dame game like 10 years ago. There was a lot of people on Notre Dame, but like it was like a -10 line, but like the money line did not correlate. I didn't bet it myself, but like I saw a lot of people betting the Bama money line because it was a money line, like you said, that didn't correlate with like a -10 favorite. And there was like a similar, not a similar line, but a similar situation when you remember the year that, well, I think you might remember only because you lived in the Northwest, Oregon playing against Ohio State. And I think they were like laying like 5.5 or 6. I don't remember what it was, but like people had hammered the Ohio State money line, the plus money line so much that it was like they didn't adjust the money line, or I think they adjusted the money line more than they adjusted the or I forget what it was, but it was like there was value on betting the money line for Oregon, like based on like where the precedent. I feel like that based on what you're telling me, you basically just you were like almost quote unquote forced into betting it just because you realized the value in like the a team -7 playing, you figured that they're going to be close to -7 every home game, like laying only 180 like you said or whatever it was, like you're almost kind of forced into betting that.
yeah, absolutely. It wasn't like it was just, oh, I've handicapped the Raptors to beat these. I mean, the Raptors were better, or they
Yeah.
should have been. And no, you see the same thing in the Super Bowl too. Early, I bet the Patriots when they were 18-0, the helmet catch. I had the Patriots -350 money line on a game that's a 2 touchdown spread because
Yeah.
people, if they think the Giants are going to win, they don't want 14 points. They want, God, what imagine what price they're getting, 275.
Yeah.
Like it's just horrible. And it's really only happens on games with huge handle, where there is enough square money, and the squares, they take the plus money line or they lay the points. You end up with this weird thing where like the spread has only upwards pressure and the money line is downward pressure, and you end up with like an arguable situation. And it was the same thing. Like I say, I mean, Bill Simmons is like the highest profile square imaginable, and he's like, got to bet a lot of people. The Cavs are a series dog with LeBron. Like, got to take. They're getting plus odds, and it didn't matter that. Well, it didn't make any sense to bet that. You could just bet them +7 in every road. You bet them pick at home, like they were pick in Game 3. Bet that. That's a hell of a lot better than taking 155 for the series.
Yeah.
Okay. A lot of that's just one where it's math over handicapping. Just if you're gonna bet on a team, do it or a total or anything. Just do it the correct way. You don't have to. You don't just have to bet the full game side. Bet a half. Bet a derivative. Bet something. There's always a best way to attack any bet that you want to make.
Sure. Okay. Now, off of the handicap spectrum was a question from the realist Dan, and I was asking for smart questions or dumb questions, and he said I'm here for the dumb. So he was asking why the choice of pink angry goat avatar.
That is it's a double entendre. There's nothing I love more than puns, double entendres. And it is the disgruntled goat from The Simpsons. And please don't take this as me saying I am the goat, because I certainly don't think I am. But I thought it was humorous that my Twitter persona is pretty much that of a curmudgeon. And so disgruntled goat, I thought was pretty good double entendre.
Sure. Okay. Simple enough.
And it was one of those weird choices that wasn't like, oh, this is, again, I picked it, when I had 20 Twitter followers, and I just kind of thought it was funny. Mm-hmm. And now I think it's kind of like, I think if I changed my avatar, it would be too jarring. So I think it's a good avatar, but I don't feel like I can change it. So if I ever want to change something, I change the header on my Twitter page too.
Makes sense. I took mine. I remember we made a stop in Wisconsin, there was a friend of mine getting married on a Memorial Day weekend, and my avatar is like me, just like in the Polka Hall of Fame, Wisconsin Polka Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And so there was like an empty spot next to like one of the guys that was in the Polka Hall of Fame recently. So like, I don't know, just dumb. Who cares? Like, I'd rather just have it be dumb. And then my background's like, a picture of my like toilet in the Man of the Year, or Big Lebowski Man of the Year mirror that I have. So I mean, I don't really I don't put too much thought into it myself.
Yeah, like even the JT_spoon. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Again, it was something I never thought I would ever tweet. I had a Twitter for like a year before I ever tweeted, and I was just stalking or whatever. And now many years, I would just change it to my name, but my name's already taken. Like, okay. The Twitter handle of my name's taken. The Spoon in Vegas @ is taken. I'm like, whoever that is. So I'm like, fine, I'll just keep this idiocy. The funny part was there's this fucking weird ass autistic psycho on RTP, Benny Profane, who like stalked me, and he would like, the weird part was we didn't even have a beef. It was like this one-sided beef. I've never even met the guy, I don't know him, and he was weirdly obsessed with me. And Grooven told me, because he had like admin powers there, and he's like, yeah, he's like registering stuff as like Jacob the Spoon at something or other, and I'm like, huh? So JT Spoon was Jacob the _spoon. Like that was it took me like 13 seconds to come up with this thing for a Twitter that I was never going to use, and now I'm stuck with it forever.
Yeah, I think in the last the podcast I heard with you with Phil, you were talking about how you remember things in terms of like the NBA finals that happened that year.
Mm-hmm.
And like my account actually started the Heat Spurs, the Heat Mavericks NBA finals.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been almost, I can't believe it. Yeah, it's already been almost 10 years since that happened. So I can't believe that's been that long. But yeah, I was posting pictures of my like Bellagio buffet from my account. So.
Yeah, the good old days. I love those original things, especially from like famous people's accounts, where you see the stuff that they were like testing in their old days before they sort of got the hang of it.
Yeah, and I still don't. Yeah, I feel like I intentionally post like a lot of dumb shit, so like not too many people follow me, or like I'll lose some followers just because I don't really want to have like a huge ass following like some of these people do. Like I have no aspirations for that.
Yeah, I don't. That's the weird part. I like a real life friend who follows me on there, who's like my videos. Like, yeah, so this is Jacob. He was introducing me to somebody else. Like, he's a tout with nothing to tout, or like, I honestly don't. There's no end game. Like, I can assure you there will never be a Spoon says handicapping service or something. I'm never going to make a dime off of YouTube or Twitter, and I'm like, so why do I do this? I don't know. Like, I literally have no idea. I'm sure it's negative EV, and I don't even know why. It's just I don't know, the endorphin rush of those likes and retweets that a lot of Seville likes to troll people, like when Rufus was posting his shit, and they're like, or Ed Teach, these guys who win, and then there's still, or me, that like post for no real reason, and it's like, isn't the money the way to keep score? Like, yeah. I don't know. I can't justify it, but I still do it.
Yeah. All right. The next one was Jim Sebo asking about any stories regarding any weird now defunct advantage play hustles. I think you went over some of those before, but are there like any that like stand out like to you in your memory bank that you care to share?
Sure. I could stay here for hours talking about like goofy ass casino stuff. The one I think is funny. There was way old school, like early 2000. Like when I was first starting out, these the Washington card rooms, they came out with this coupon book. It was the Lady Luck Casino coupon book. It was just a book full of match play. For $40, you got like thousands of dollars worth of match play coupons and stuff, and it was a great deal. And I don't think they really realized what they were doing, because they were so used to just giving out the match plays and stuff to their degenerates. It's like, well, now you're going to encourage people who don't. It's one thing to give out a match play coupon to a loyal customer. It's another thing to just sell hundreds of dollars of match plays to somebody who doesn't give a shit about your casino, who's going to come in and play one hand. So that's exactly what started happening. Oh, $25 match play. And for anybody who's not familiar, it just means you bet 25, you win the hand, they pay you 50, you lose, they take your 25. So you bet you play two of them, you end up with $75. It's a $12.50 profit, like, not accounting for the vig. And the casinos were getting pissed off because they're having 30 people a day who would come in, play one hand, and then win or lose, you just walk out the door. And they're just losing $12 and 25 cents to this every single day. So they came out with volume. So they got angry and were like, we got to fix this. So they came out with volume 2 of the Lady Luck Casino book. And instead of $25 match plays, they put in this $25 play till you win blackjack. And all that was when you got a blackjack, they would give you an extra $25. Well, you're not likely to hit a blackjack on the first hand, so that at least they were forcing you to play with them. But the amazing part was, so you get a blackjack for $5, they pay you $7.50 plus 25. It wasn't even just flat 25. So the tidy 6.5 to 1 blackjack game, and it takes you like 21 hands to get a blackjack. So you bet $100, you lose like 60 cents to the game, and then they pay you $25. So in fixing the $12.20 match play coupon, they doubled your EV to $24, but they made you sit there for 10 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'll take it.
It doesn't sound so bad.
Yeah, okay. So the coupon run might have taken an extra 2 hours, but they doubled the money. And I think they were kind of happy at first because it was working as intended. They made all of the coupon sluts come in there and play with them for 20 minutes. Of course, you'd have to, and now that I'm going to be here, I got to order a free drink too. So it went from like, you would play one-handed bolt, and now like, okay, give me a drink, I'll hang out. And so they cost themselves that, and then they doubled your earn. And then after like 3 more months, they realized what a colossal fuck up that was. And but the best part, I mean, they sold you the coupon books. They couldn't. It wasn't like they were just giving out coupons that could stop. Like they sold it, and then they did try a bunch of. They were trying to like ban people or not sell the coupons. And so of course they got sued because like, well, they sold me. You can't sell me. They sold the coupon at their own cage. Like imagine come here and buy a $25 match play for $2 and you do, and then they ban you when you go to use it. Like that's not legal. So yeah, that was definitely, I still have one of the old, I have one of the Lady Lucks in my, I don't know, somewhere around the house just as a souvenir of some of the good times.
Okay. All right. Let's see. So the next one we have was from Gaper Mayfield about thoughts on Kobe.
Oh, he's overrated. Yeah. I mean, he's great. He's like a great. He's a Hall of Famer. Like no question about that. I just I remember, I don't know. I think it was Inside the NBA or something like that. One of them was, there was who do you have as the greatest of all time? And you think that this is the millionth LeBron v MJ, and then somebody on there was like, yeah, I'm definitely on the Kobe side of this. I'm like, what the fuck is the Kobe side? Like there is no Kobe side. He's like the 25th best player of all time. He's not a top guy. If he had played his career for the Bucks or the Hornets or the Magic and not the Lakers, like he would have just be kind of a footnote in history. But because he played for the most visible franchise, and he, the media liked him, and he, he's definitely outsized relative to what his real place in history is. And then a lot of the people that defend him are like, oh yeah, I just saw that thread a week ago. But yeah, he was 6 for 24 in Game 7 where he got the MVP undeservedly, but his impact on the intangibles, his will to win, or he was 6 for 24, but he without him they don't win. If you're just gonna paper over every shortcoming, and well, he was actively bad, but he's just so good that it didn't matter. What is okay? You can make that argument about like literally anything.
So in terms of your interactions with people, would you say like Kobe stands are like the worst to interact with, or do you have like a different different player?
Jordan stands like the people that are like he's the pinnacle because he had to rough it with Bill Laimbeer and Rick Mahorn or whatever. I'm like, yeah, because LeBron going up against Draymond Green was, I guess, an easy assignment. He's not like Laimbeer was a no-skill player. He was feared because he's a cheap shot artist and a dirty player because he didn't like have a lot of other tools in his bag. Draymond Green besides the nut kicking, but like Draymond Green is fucking good. And like, don't tell me that going against Bill Laimbeer was tough because he would, like pull up, give you a wedgie or something. But
clothesline you or something.
Yeah. Oh, you come down the line and he'd clothesline you, and now that's like a 7-game suspension. Sure, the game was tougher, but like Draymond Green can actually defend you. He can actually do things. That's much more intimidating to me than some stiff who's an enforcer.
Well, yeah, people fall in love with like the old times in like most sports, and it's like every sport like had its like share of players that like had minimal skill compared to like the guys now, where all they did was like hit people after the whistle, or like just like set like a tone. And like for some reason, like I don't know, people look fondly at those days, like that it was like cool to like punch somebody in the in the head or something like that. Like there's what how does that help your sport, like to grow?
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Yeah. I will say I don't like the whole, we got to go for a replay to see if this was we got to kick somebody out of, enough of that. Like if there's some contact, get up. And I do agree a little bit with like we've gone way too far in the coddling of.
Oh sure.
But we also don't need to go to the games where like these guys. Oh, look at that! He clotheslined him and nearly severed his head from his body, and he finished the game. Boy, those were the good old days. That's not the good old days. And also back then, they were paying Magic Johnson was making $1 million a year. Now he's making $50 million. Like they got to protect. Yeah. As kind of sick as it is, they have to protect these guys as assets as well.
Sure.
But yeah, we don't need the like he swung his elbow through making a rip move, and that's got to be like a disqualification because he caught him on the nose. Like, give me a fucking break. Let's play some basketball.
All right. The next question here was from Davey Day Gambler about if there's any websites similar to Armchair Analytics for the NBA.
Yeah. Why am I drawing a blank here? Oh, Cleaning the Glass. That's like $5 a month. So they have good, unique some numbers on there, and for like player specific. Just the thing is though, like Basketball Reference is good. Even for it's not as good for individuals, but just if you want team stats, like even NBA.com Advanced Stats has like 30, and you can filter it by anything. You want to know what a team's pace in the second quarter of like home games for the last month is. It's on NBA.com, and that's kind of like it's why a lot of the edges changed too. 10 years ago, these numbers weren't like widely available. And I mean, think about like to the 80s, the computer group, Billy Walters, that was like how they made their fortune, because in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And it's sort of like, well, the bookies, the guy at the Stardust, he's got the little green visor on, and he's making his number on his power ratings or whatever. And you could bet plus the NFL +8 at the Stardust, or you could go to the Debbie Reynolds and lay 6, and no Don Best screen, no mobile phones, none of this shit. And so Billy Walters and his Apple IIe were probably just crushing it. But these days, like kind of everybody is on an equal footing as far as those the ability to model or use data-driven analysis. So I think a little bit of subjective capping goes a long way these days relative to back then. But yeah, I mean, if you want data, like there's plenty. Like I say, you can literally just start with NBA.com or Basketball Reference. It's all out there. You don't need to spend $1 million charting plays with your own team or something like that.
Yeah. Now, without maybe you don't have to necessarily say what statistic. Like one of the things I just had in mind was like, do you, in your interactions with people on Twitter, maybe just in day to day, like do you see like a lot of these advanced stats like people quote that you just know are like just like why is this a stat? Like why do you think this has value? Like
I think the main people who win, don't try to create narratives for their plays for the most part. You'll see, like I said, circling back like Daily Wager, it cracks me up when they're like, oh well, tonight the Suns are playing the Knicks, and so both of these teams are really good at defense, so I like the under. And I'm like, well, yeah. And the total's 30 points less than a Mavericks Nets game. No shit. Those teams are good at defense. These teams, they're like, well, I like the under because these teams are better at defense than offense, or vice versa. Well, that's and they'll throw in the, well, looking at their Kazarian is the master of like, well, this team is the highest scoring. I like the Blazers first quarter over because they score a lot in the first quarter. Okay. I mean, I that's fine. I don't think that beats minus 115, but okay. Sure. I think it's mostly media personalities that kind of skim some of that stuff and find. I think most people are looking for a justification to bet what they want to bet anyway, and they will find it. They look at the numbers to find what they want to bet, not the other way around. Like the way you should do it is you should have a hypothesis and then see if the numbers back it up. I would say that is mostly my approach. And 90% of the time it ends up being nothing, but every once in a while it'll be like, okay, the numbers confirm what I believed anyway, and maybe that's when you want to bet something.
Yeah, the way you just described it, like that's how I feel like about people who talk about politics on Twitter. They'll look for, or just in day-to-day life, they'll look, just on their side, they're looking for things that confirm their already predisposed belief system.
I don't think there's. I think the lack of bipartisanship in this country is definitely kind of like the advent of social media. Oh, I'm not going to get in a Facebook group with all the Fox News viewers or vice versa. Like you just end up in the echo chamber. You get further and further and further entrenched in what you already believe to begin with. And you find people with that same viewpoint and you filter out all opposing viewpoints, and then you become a radical. Like everybody the polls just skew and there's nothing left in the middle. And then, like it just leads to pretty poor thought processes.
Sure. All right. This is one of the better ones. Well, I just liked your response to it already, but it was Sugar Shane asking about could Gonzaga beat the Celtics? I think you reversed the question.
Yeah, because the Celtics and a best of 7, I think the Celtics could definitely take a game off them. But no, the Celtics are hot now, and of course they have soon to be the Basketball Hall of Fame starring Jason Tatum. Like he's on the team, so they're they can't be beat. I think, and Brad Stevens is more valuable than LeBron James. I think Gonzaga is mostly drawing dead in that matchup, but maybe they can win the Natty this year, and that'll be good enough.
Oh yeah, because you're from the Northwest, so you have some fandom with them, or?
Yeah, I'm a basketball wise, I'm a Gonzaga fan. Okay. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Oregon State is. I root for them, much to my chagrin.
Is that your alma mater?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I went to U of I in Champaign, so like my last year there was when they made the title game against Carolina. So
yeah, that was but the Arizona game that'll live on.
Oh, I watched YouTube clips of that and still tear up. No joke. I watch it like every year around this time. I start crying to myself. It's just so amazing. We were about to turn the game off. I was watching it with my parents, and they were down like 15 with like 3:40 to go or something like that. So like
I would have turned it off, but I would have been like, peeping the score out of the corner of my eye, like just in case it gets closer. And then I would turn it off with like 30 seconds left to catch the end.
Yeah, and this wasn't like this wasn't when I had internet on my phone, so it wasn't like I would be able to check it on my phone and like turn it back on. Like you had to keep it on.
So. The pinnacle of my college basketball fandom, Oregon State fan. I did go to the national title game when Gonzaga also lost to Carolina. Okay. I went to Oregon State has made the tournament once since 1990. So like kind of I was a baby. So in my lifetime, we've made the tournament once. In 2016, I flew to Oklahoma City, one of my least favorite places imaginable. I go to the shit dump arena that's there, and we're like the first game. They're playing VCU, and this is one of those like when you're in the West Coast and you see the game that tips off at like 9:20 a.m. You're like, oh, who gets stuck with that? Well, that was us. So I'm in Oklahoma City. I get there super early. I'm so jacked. Like I can't believe the Beavers made the tournament. That's how shitty we are. We made the tournament, and I'm excited. Every other team makes the tournament all the time. So I'm in Oklahoma City, where I hate, and I'm there. There's like 13 other Beaver fans that have made the trip. I'm barely awake. We lose because we're Oregon State. We're a 7 seed when we should have been like a 12. We're a dog to the 10 seed because the market's like hell no. And I'm pretty sure I bet on us because why not? And then of course VCU wins fairly easily. And so now I'm stuck in Oklahoma. I have great seats because I bought them directly from OSU for like $100. I was like right behind the bench.
Okay.
And and the next game was Oklahoma versus Bakersfield. So you have all these Okies, all these Hicks there, and they're like all trying to buy me. They're like, can we buy your seat so we can, because they're going to be, they want to sit right next to the court, and they know that I'm angry, and I'll probably sell my seat because I don't want to be there. Like they're not going to get the VCU fan seats, but they can probably get mine. So yeah, I had like 5 Oklahoma people all trying to like buy my seats, and like, oh, we have a seat back there you can sit in to watch this Oklahoma versus Bakersfield game. I'm like, the only upside was that was the night that the Northern Iowa game where they came back from like 14 down with 2 minutes left. So that was actually pretty exciting. And then I was on the next flight out of that hellhole.
I've never been to that area of the country, so like I'll take your word on that.
It sucked, and the police there are corrupt. I've been pulled over twice driving through with out-of-state plates where they do the whole like fake drug dog alerts on your car, and they try to like ransack you for cash. It's just an awful place, and the place, it sucks.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, never had a lot of good experience in Oklahoma.
There's some real shitholes in this country.
There are.
All right, let's see. So the next question here is from Whale Capper. I guess we kind of addressed this. When does the next Spoon Says drop? I guess we kind of already did that. There was that amazing analysis of the dunk contest.
Sooner than you think. I think I have a good idea. It should be coming soon, but I'm going to. I think we're unveiling a guest star. The funny, after I did my first like 2 videos, I got multiple people that like wanted to be in them. Like they were like, can we have an idea, or can I be in the videos or something? I'm like, you saw this, right? Like this is like shit. And yeah. So I got a little something in the works coming up here. I know that people have a little extra money these days because the NFL season's over. So I might have an investment opportunity coming up.
Yeah, then that was from Whale Camper, by the way. He was asking about the sponsorship.
Send me the hoodie, Whale. I keep trying to browbeat these into sending me this hoodie. Yeah, sponsorship's available. I will. Well, I should have. I think it was one of your questions, but yeah, let's say. I didn't know that and I agreed to do Bebo Knows before I realized I could become an official partner of the Golden Knights, because apparently they will whore themselves out for literally anything. So I probably would have just become too famous if I had gotten the official lifestyle and education series podcast of the Golden Knights or something like that. And then, I would have been too big to do this.
Yeah, I ended up like last week. I don't know if you saw. I posted like pictures of like this new putter and golf balls that I got from Dick's Sporting Goods, and I didn't tag them, but they must search their like just their hand like the reference. They searches the reference. I had no intention of like whoring myself out. I'm still that's not what I was intending on doing, but they ended up like basically telling me to slide into their DMs, and they ended up sending me like this nice like dry fit polo and more golf balls from them. So I guess whoring yourself out isn't like bad sometimes. It certainly wasn't my intention to get free shit, but I'll take it. Like those golf balls will be gone by July. But
I thought golf balls from me are gone usually by the turn, if not sooner.
Are there what are the biggest obstacles on golf courses in Vegas? Like, is it like where do you lose golf balls? Do they have a lot of
the dirt?
Yeah.
Because they'll pay to water your fairway, but then when you're OB, it's just like you're going to like the Gila monster's den to go chase down your ball. don't think I'm getting too far off the course out there, or the ones that are in housing communities stuff.
Okay.
Well, usually for me, spraying it OB isn't the problem. It's like I just don't hit it that far.
Okay. Yeah, I'm terrible. Like, the home course that I have around here, I think the last 2 times I shot like 118, and I see people on here that shoot like in the 80s and 90s, and I'm like, we're never playing together. So like, I'm just shooting with my dad. My dad sucks. I suck. So like, we'll keep it that way.
Yeah, 100 is like that. That's my target. If I break 100, that's a good round.
Yeah. I'm aiming for like 110 at this home course, like within the next year, but we'll see. So yeah, Dick's Sporting Goods, new sponsor of Lobo Knows. I know they want that press, but the rest of these questions were from Mr. Nissan, Johnny Nissan here, about the Vegas Knights. What should they do with their goalie situation?
Play Leonard. So I mean, of course, I have zero expertise as far as like NHL goaltending is concerned, but this is one of the most obvious ever, where like every time they would play the same opponent consecutively, or even like they would start the day with Leonard expected in net and they're minus 200, and then he gets scratched for Fleury and now they're minus 170. Like, what more do you need to know? I know nothing about hockey goaltending, but I trust the market, and it says that Leonard's better. So
that's significant.
There's really not. Yeah, Leonard's always a bigger favorite than Fleury, and therefore I must believe that he is better, and you should play the guy who's better. The problem is the Golden Knights fan base is just full of morons, and they remember like that first season, and so like you can't. Everybody is overvalued in the mind of these fans, and Fleury. How can you fire Gallant, bench Fleury? And it's like, because they have somebody better, and that how can you trade a guy or let a guy go if he was here on that first season? They're forever in love.
That brings up. Yeah, I forget if I asked.
They would rather run that thing back in perpetuity than try to improve. Like they're like a top 3 team in the league right now, and the fans aren't happy because the coach is different. Who fucking cares?
They should, be happy with success. Shouldn't matter how you get there.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens. The day comes that the team is bad, and we'll see. How things look. But still the honeymoon phase here for now.
I don't know if I asked Johnny this before, but like when you are looking at, like, I don't know if you look like, just because you have an interest in the team, do you compare like the prices of their games compared to off overseas? I'm say overseas, but like the like are the lines in Vegas like inflated for Vegas games?
A little bit. They certainly were the first year, not as much, especially now that like a lot of these places are. I mean, they're really sharp, but the Circas and Westgates like just aren't really going to offer you something. And then like Boyd isn't even run by Boyd anymore. Station, yeah. Basically, I've bet against the Knights like 30 times more than I've ever bet on them.
Since I feel like you'd get a good a better number on the opponents more often than you would like betting it.
I can't think of it, and you're either getting like the market number or a better price than the other team. Plus, it's as square as it is. I generally don't really want to bet on the team. I want to win the game anyway if I have a legitimate rooting interest. Like, it's just a double whammy.
Sure.
So I would, if I can profitably bet against them, I'm not going to bet against them just for the hell of it. But if I can do it like at the best, like a positive EV number, then like, oh, okay, it's even better. I'm very rarely looking to bet on them. Like, oh, they lost and I just lost money. Like, that's even worse.
So you kind of addressed this already. Why weren't you tapped to be the official tout? But I think they've already like canceled that.
Well, I didn't know. And it was. I didn't see anybody mention it. Said an official tout service of the Golden Knights. I was like, Ann, hey, the door is open. I need to get my representatives on the line. Maybe I was just thinking of like going in there one night and seeing like during the second intermission on the jumbotron, like one of my videos just pops up. I'm like, hey, I'm here to talk. Yeah, like the opportunities were off the charts. but I think they soured on touts, but I don't sell anything. So maybe I can help them bolster their reputation by just showing that like they had the best intentions at heart. They just want to the high end sports betting content is all that they really were wanting to share with the world. And I mean, who better than a Vegas local and than me? So maybe I'll get my representatives on the line with them, and hopefully we can iron that out.
All right, look forward to that. The next question from him was the ketchup versus mustard.
Mustard, and it's not even close. What do you put ketchup on? Like ketchup is, I mean, I have it with fries, and even then ranch outclasses it. I mean, mustard's good. Like I put mustard, I'm a mustard like fan, and I have Dijon, I have spicy brown, I have regular. Like I have 4 different mustards in my fridge right now. And I probably have like a ketchup packet sitting in one of my cabinets, like just in case I need it. But it very rarely comes up.
Just in case you lure a 5-year-old into your place.
Yeah, if I need it, it's there. But like that's in the case of emergency. But like mustard is an everyday cooking tool around here.
Is there anything that like you use it on that like some people might not think to use it on?
I don't know if I go that far. I mean, I'm not putting like mustard on my cereal or ice cream or something like that. Like, no, I think it's standard use. But I am, like I say, a mustard's not like certain sandwich, like which sandwich I'm eating, or that gets a different mustard. There's different mustards for different breads, for different meats, for different flavors. You've got to pair it correctly for sure.
Okay. And I don't know how much you care to go into this. One of his ones that he asked me was about like an NBA bad beat or bet that you shouldn't have won that you did. Like, because I feel like a lot of people love to share the bad beat ones, but they like forget like the ones like that, were just garbage that like, somehow you like lucked into it. But do you have one that like, you remember for your rest of your life, or like, or you kind of just try to brush them off?
A bet that I should not have won. How about the UVA Natty? Like,
yeah,
because I don't care, but I thought it was a little funny that like we have Vegas Dave who built his scamming tout empire on the back of a future, and then I see all the like Ed Teach and Gamble Balls, taking like ESPN article victory lap. Like fucking Purdom tweeted out my Virginia bet, and it wins in the most absurd fashion possible. And like, oh, nobody cares. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, where's my ESPN article about Virginia the year after they get bounced by UMBC, and then they pull off the miracle run of all miracle runs? And Purdom's like, oh yeah, big bet reported it. And she's like, I got the ticket right here. I cashed that fucking thing. And I guess I didn't change my avatar to the Tom Brady pirate. But again, like, I'm ranting a bit. It's not as if I actually care. I didn't have my publicist on the line with ESPN, man, and I don't want to create the Vegas Dave show empire, so I'll just let it go. But that did not deserve to win, but it was a pretty tasty victory.
And I was gonna say I don't think people realize, like, when you actually like watch those games and like realize, like, they probably should have lost in the Elite Eight against Purdue that year.
They should have lost.
It was like a miracle shot, like, to force overtime.
Mm-hmm. They were dead and buried there, or they were on the ropes there, and then they were totally dead and buried against Tech. And
even Auburn in the Final Four, like they needed like 3 free throws when they were down 2.
It was outrageous. I mean, that was one where like all of the lifetime of bad beats kind of came back in one fell swoop.
Yeah, and that's the first. That's like the first like big, like decent, like for me, decent size payout I got for like a March Madness pool, because I had put Virginia in my as my champ, because I was like, I normally never put I'm not going to put Gonzaga in any of my title championships. What, no matter what, it's just like a game theory sort of thing. Like, you're just trying to give yourself a better chance to win if they lose. But it made me realize like how lucky it was to even just win one of those.
It's really hard. That's even when you see betting the chalk, like, oh, this,
Yeah.
most of the time we're like, oh, any of these 4 teams to like win it, and they're all like the 1 seeds, and you think, well, that's a lock, and like even still, and they're getting plus odds, and it just kind of like your gut feels like this seems crazy, but yeah, hard to pick the winner out of 68 teams, although like 35 of them are just hopeless.
Sure. All right. He had a 2-pronged question. How can UNLV join the Pac-10 / should they join the Pac-12? UNLV, should they join the Pac-12 or how can they?
Yeah, they can kick out the Ducks, and no, I think the thing they have going for them is like the Pac-12 has already embraced Las Vegas so wholeheartedly. Like, we're already holding the football and basketball championships here. I clearly, geographically, it's perfect, but I think their problem is the academics, and yeah, plus they suck. I mean, what is the UNLV? If this was 1990, like, they might have had a better leg to stand on, but like a bad basketball team and a really, really bad football team, when they already have access to Las Vegas market, I guess what I'm saying, like, if they weren't putting the football game here without UNLV joining the Pac-12, maybe they'd have a stronger negotiating position. But it's like, the Pac-12 is already receiving all the benefits that Las Vegas has to offer without putting a middling university and athletic program in. Their best hope of getting in is if we get to like the super conference stage, where the Pac-12 just wants to go up to like 14 or 16 or whatever they want. And I think if the Pac-12 looks to expand, UNLV has a perfectly reasonable argument to get included. I can't think of like a lot of better candidates on the West Coast, but they're not replacing anybody, and I don't. So that's kind of where they're at.
Okay. And the last one that he had was what fans said is more annoying, the Oregon fans or Gonzaga fans?
I mean, Oregon is what can you even say about them? They're like by far the worst fan base in college sports, if not all sports, if not in like life. I mean, Gonzaga fans are a little insufferable in that they haven't won anything, and they still treat themselves as like the mid-major that could kind of deal, but they've been really good for so long. But like, I mean, I am a Gonzaga basketball fan, such as it is. The Ducks are just reprehensible. The Ducks have also never won anything, but they consider themselves to be like the pinnacle of everything. I obviously have nothing good to say about Duck fans.
Now, to go back to his previous question, do you think it'd make more sense for Gonzaga to go to the Pac-12?
Well, they don't play football.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I guess I wasn't thinking of the football angle of it. So yeah, I guess
if Boise State couldn't get into the Pac-12 with their football resume, especially like what it was some years ago, it's going to be really difficult to.
Yeah.
I think again, it's going to be like an expand. They go to 16 teams, and okay, maybe. I remember when Boise State, it was definitely talked about. Like, okay, what does Boise State bring? A good football team, but they're not like. The Pac-12 is really has this hard on for academics because obviously like Stanford doesn't really want to be associated, probably even with Arizona State and Wazoo and Oregon schools, but they kind of they like to you have USC and Stanford and Berkeley, like these are like really good schools, and I think they kind of want the academic level to not fall too far below what you already get with the Arizona States and Washington States of the world.
Okay, yeah, I don't know anything about Gonzaga academics.
It's a good school and a great basketball team, but they don't play football. So that's like when I brought that up, I didn't think of I forgot that it's the conference alignments normally go with football. So. Well, I mean, that's really other than like the Big East in basketball, because they don't even play football. Then the Big East basketball is just like this weird hodgepodge of like teams. DePaul and Providence are like in the same conference, and then like Georgetown, and I don't know what any of these teams have to do with each other, but they all just only play basketball and have like good histories. It'd be pretty funny to see like Gonzaga in the Big East in basketball. But was that Boise State? I think was going to join the Big East in football at one point in time. Like, oh, sure. And like the geography just doesn't seem to matter anymore. So maybe Gonzaga can slip into the Big East at some point. That might be their best hope.
Yeah, I know. When they started expanding the Big Ten into Maryland and Rutgers, like, it's just like,
I pretend that didn't happen. And really nothing of value is lost. Like if you just scrubbed Maryland and Rutgers games from the Big whatever to 10, is it still called the Big Ten? How many teams are in the Big Ten? 14?
Yeah, I know they had that cool looking logo with the 11 baked into the 10,
11, that was nice.
Which is pretty cool. Like that's that was sharp, but like there's no like you can't put like a 14 in that, like
No, they're stuck, and there's nothing of value inside it. Like what has Rutgers or Maryland, like what signature moment have they ever provided to its?
Just adding more Big Ten market TV revenue, network revenue.
Yeah, financially, I get it. It's just kind of like it's sort of with the NBA. Like I get why they won't eliminate the courtside seats, but it makes a shitty product. Well, I get why you're adding Maryland, but it does not make your product.
Like what does it do? Like they like for me, Maryland will always be an ACC team. Like that's just how I feel. Even having a Big Ten rooting interest, like Maryland isn't like ever going to be like a rival. It'd be Wisconsin or like Michigan.
The Illinois Maryland game is like, all right, here we go. Like I don't care if Maryland wins 10 straight Big Ten titles. I still don't view them as a Big Ten team or a rival or anything. Like you're just never going to get excited about it.
Yeah. Okay. Is there any final thoughts before we wrap this up? I think we hit the 2-hour mark here.
Yeah, buy my picks. Whatever, I don't know what they are, but I'm here to show. I have no.
You had that slam dunk contest pick based on that astute analysis.
Bet Simon, he's a Blazer, so I know. Yeah, bet Simon. Bet him at any price. He's good. That's my
any price.
But any price, bet him. That's my tout for.
You bet winners. You don't bet prices. You bet winners.
Don't bet prices, bet winners. Actually, price pays plus money, so you do want to shop. Winners don't pay big, but in this case, your payout would be bigger. So shop. I don't have an affiliate link or anything, so just find the best price. Bet Simons to take down the slam dunk.
All right, all right. Well, thanks for joining, Mr. Spoon. JT_Spoon, if you want to catch him on Twitter. Thanks for joining, and good luck with your the rest of your season there. And everyone, once again, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you next time.